Today we're going to dive into one of the #1 warranty issues with these Evolution Kart D5s and potentially the D Maxes as well. And what that is a broken accelerator pedal. So if you have a Evolution Kart and you're pushing on that gas pedal and everything else seems to be working, but you're just not moving forward, then this video is going to be the one for you. Today we are going to look at how to diagnose and potentially repair the Evolution Kart throttle position sensor. It's this little sensor that's bolted up to the end of your throttle pedal that interprets the position and passes it onto the controller to tell it whether you should be moving forward or not. How it works is relatively simple. However, the main issue is it's made out of the world's most brittle plastic. This plastic enclosure is known to crack, break, let water in, as well as the internal components, which is this little magnet holder that rotates based on the pedal position, just crumbles and falls apart if it ever meets any resistance. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to see if this little throttle position sensor is your issue. And if it is, and the internals, the magnet holder is just what's broken, I'll show you how to replace that for a fraction of the price. These replacement units can be upwards of $300 if you do not have warranty on your cart. So I'm going to show you how to just replace the broken part instead. So another symptom that you might see is if your cart turns on and you're getting error code 085, wait for this here, see there, error code 085. That means that the cart is getting the wrong voltage out of the gate. What was happening is I was holding the throttle while the cart turned on. And so what was happening is the cart turned on and it was getting 5 volts, which it deemed to be like the incorrect amount of voltage at the time of startup. So what it's assuming is that there's something really wrong with your throttle pedal. Either it's calibrated wrong, the magnet is switched in the wrong way, the plastic is broken. So if you're seeing that error code 085, it's also a good sign that something is going wrong with your electronic throttle position sensor. Now, before you go dismantling your cart and trying to get this and do debugging with it on the Workbench, one of the easiest ways to see if this is indeed the culprit is to use the Evolution Kart tuning software. Now, I built this USB cable for $27 worth of Amazon parts. And if you don't have a USB tuning cable yourself, go check out our other video. I'll try to add a link to it right here that teaches you how to make and create this USB tuning cable. For reference of the steps I'm going to go through today, this golf cart is a 2025 Evolution 2+2. And if you're looking for what model your controller is, you go to the other side of the controller, try to stick your phone up in there and take a picture. There will be a couple barcodes and it'll say close to those barcodes EV 400A, 400B, or 400C. So I'm using the 400C and hence I have the 400C software here. So with my controller programming cable in and the cart on, I just hit the connect button in the other tab. And when I go back to the home page, you should be able to see live data cycling through. So I see a little bit of fluctuation in motor current and I see my temperatures and everything right here. So one of the first things you want to do is press on your accelerator pedal and see if this accelerator switch is triggering to green. This is more of an on-off switch. So when you push it down, it should go green. When you let it off, it should go back to off, on, off. So this should change colors. For me, when I push on the accelerator, this accelerator switch is not turning green. Now, the reason is my accelerator switch is sitting here on the Workbench and it's not plugged in. So that is simulating as if it was dead or potentially not rotating. So the next thing to look at is you're going to want to go into this Vehicle Parameters tab, and this is still on the Home Page tab, Vehicle Parameters. You'll see here this accelerator voltage. Right now it is at 0. As you push the pedal down, you should see that voltage increase from 0 up to 5 volts. And so what you want to do is you want to have your laptop within sight, push on the accelerator pedal, and see if this value changes. If this value is not changing, then that means either the spindle inside of here is broken and the magnet isn't rotating, and or the entire unit itself, something is wrong with it. But as you press on the pedal, you should see the accelerator voltage go between 0 and 5, like slowly increase, determining your pedal position. So if both of those are not acting up correctly, or you're seeing very sporadic voltage, or something is not working smoothly, it should be pretty obvious that the pedal position sensor is working or not once you have the tuning software open. So the next thing we're going to do is take it out of the cart. So to get it out of the cart, all you really need is a Phillips screwdriver and a 4mm Allen key. On the cart, you're going to take off the glove box with the bolt here and 2 bolts here, and this should just lift out. The other thing you can do to give yourself a little bit more space is there's some plastic covers down here, and there's a Phillips screw there, one here, and one on the other side. You need to take off the steering column one too. There's 2 pieces of plastic and 3 screws there. That'll give you a little bit more space underneath to get to that bottom screw. So the pedal position sensor bolts right onto the side of the throttle down here. So when you look down from the top, you can see I've already removed mine, but there's 2 Allen keys that kind of heads that screw it in from here to here. And you can also see the adjustments that you have. On the top is the top full throttle adjustment where the pedal hits the limit there. And on the bottom is the release adjustment, so the non-throttle position there. So you do have a little bit of adjustment here where you can fine tune it after the fact. If you're noticing that your voltage is above 0 or below 0 or not getting all the way to 5 volts, you can adjust these here. So what I did is I undid the 2 Allen keys, and then I cut a zip tie because the cable is bundled up over here. And then you can pull the throttle position sensor out and have a look at it on your workbench. So once you've pulled it out, first thing to do is probably look for any obvious damage. Is it melted? Is it broken? Has it been shimmying and moving around? Do you see anything obviously wrong with the outside of the case? If not, the next step is maybe to take a look on the inside. To pull off the magnet holder, I found the easiest way is really just a pair of needle nose pliers and try to kind of get one hook in the other spot and one hook like there. Clamp it down and pull straight up. Try to kind of cover it with your hands so things don't go flying all over the place. But generally what will happen there is this little lock ring, which is just press fit on, will pop off the top, and it'll expose your little rotational magnet holder. So when you look at the backside of this little plastic rotational knob, you'll see a little magnet. And what happens here is this magnet rotates clockwise. As your pedal gets pressed down, it has a little tab that is turning this round disc. And what that's doing is it's changing the magnetic field inside of this little module here. And this is essentially a Hall sensor, which is listening for the rotation. It really only listens for about 20 degrees of rotation. And as it rotates, it passes on 0 volts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 volts. So as this rotates clockwise, it starts to increase that voltage. Now, this magnet will have a north and south pole. So what I did is I just used a Sharpie to mark it before I take it out. It also has a little arrow here. And so what you want to do is the arrow this is the factory one. And so the arrow is, what I did was I marked the right side of the arrow. So if I was looking at here, I went to the right and I marked that side because the magnet is held in at 90 degrees compared to where your throttle position goes in. So mark the magnet so that when you put it back together, you get the same polarity. Now, if your magnet's gone or missing, it's no problem. I'll show you how to double check. There's only 2 ways it can go in. Once we hook it up to a multimeter, and we can make sure that everything is getting read right. If you put the magnet in the wrong way, it will essentially not work at all. Or it might be extremely spiky because if it's in backwards, it's going to be at the other side. So in many cases, what ends up happening is this little plastic insert gets chipped and broken. They're kind of designed to have a little bit of a limit stop on them. And I think what ends up happening is that limit stop, the piece of plastic ends up ramming and jamming against itself. As you're pushing hard on your throttle, trying to get to that top gear by really ramming it, if the limits aren't set up correctly on your cart, generally I think what ends up happening is The limit is actually this tiny piece of plastic, and it's breaking on the inside. The magnet can then fall out and get loose in the bottom, and then when you're rotating, it's actually not spinning it or putting it in the right place. The good thing is you don't have to pay $300 for one of these anymore. We have some 3D printed replacement parts that we can pop our magnet out and stick it in one of these. All right, so we followed that same logic. When the arrow is up, I put the dotted side to the right, and that way we know we have the same poles. When the arrow is up, the dot is to the right, which is what I copied before I took it out of the factory one. I'm gonna place the magnet holder just back temporarily into the body of the sensor. And generally about here with the arrow up should be 0. And then as it pivots this way, we're gonna wanna see 1 volt, 2, 3, 4, 5 volts. And then as it continues 5, 5, 5, it should stay 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. And then about here, it will drop to 0. So it'll go 0. Now, typically the throttle only should be moving about 20 degrees, about this much. It will stay at 5. It should drop back to 0 about here, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And then it should start to climb about here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, again right here. So what we're gonna do to test if this is working is these throttle position sensors can actually run off 12 volt. They're rated 12 to 70 volts, I believe. So a pretty broad range that they're rated at. So we're gonna pass in 12 volts and then we're gonna listen with our multimeter on the other yellow wire, and we're gonna see if it is picking up and detecting correctly. Okay, just to show you on the cart side, so this is the throttle box plug on the cart side. So what we're looking at on our sensor is essentially the opposite. But what we'll see is pin 10 is essentially passing at 48 volts, which on our cart is 48 to 52 volts is what's coming in. The middle one here is a black wire, and that's the ground. This pin number 3 is that on-off switch. So this is kind of what our sensors like. Are you using the throttle or not? Is essentially this. And this is going to pass through the same voltage that you're giving it. So if you're passing in 12, that'll pass out 12. If you're passing in 48, it'll pass out 48. But this, as we talked about before, is the feed that goes into the ignition box also, and it lets the ignition box know, yep, you're using the cart on, off, on, off. Now, the true voltage that the controller uses, that 0 to 5 volt, is going to come out of this pin 4. And pin 4 is the only one on the lower side. And so that should be a variable voltage between 0 and 5, a nice gradual increase as you push the pedal down from off to full throttle. So full throttle is 5 and no throttle is 0. So that's the pin that we're going to want to listen to. So on the Workbench, instead of passing at 48, I'm just going to plug it into a small 12 volt battery. So I'm going to plug in these 2 wires to a 12 volt battery, and then I am going to listen on my multimeter on the bottom pin, and we're going to see if as we twist our new little plastic insert, if the voltage changes. All right, so let me show you what we got going on here. So we have a little 12 volt battery, just kicking around, handy to have, and some alligator clips. So we have the 12 volt going into, now this is the harness for the throttle position sensor. And on the harness, we've done the reverse. So that top right, when I'm looking at the plug, is getting 12 volt in. The middle pin is getting ground. Now we have this yellow wire, which is the same yellow wire on the back. So that yellow wire we have going to the multimeter on the way in. And then on the way out of the multimeter, it goes back to the battery. So put the multimeter in voltage, and I just have it set here to around 20 volts as the baseline. Now, what we can see is if I rotate this, we should pick up a range between 0 and 5 volts. So I'm going to spin this knob, and as I spin it up, okay, so you can see here we got 3. Let me go back down. It's pretty sensitive. I'm just going to rotate. Okay, so we got 3 volts, 4 volts, and now we're at 5 volts. So there really is only about, all the way back down here is 0. So pretty much straight up is 0. And as we rotate, not even, maybe 10, 20 degrees, it is already at 5. And so what you'll notice is as I rotate this, it's still at 5, still at 5. So this is like full throttle we're interpreting right now. Imagine 5 as full. I'm gonna keep going. When it gets about the opposite, it drops right back down to 0. So a hard drop to 0, no gradual. And then it stays at 0 all the way over here until we get back to 12 o'clock. So back at 12 o'clock, now it starts to increase. So we're really only looking at a small percentage of this is that fine throttle position right there. So if you plug in your throttle position sensor like I did here, and you do that, so what we're listening to is the voltage on that lower pin, so the only lower pin, which is the yellow wire on the controller, you should be able to detect variable voltage once you got your magnet back in and everything is hooked up the right way. Now, if you put your magnet in backwards, it's going to be the other way around. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that you then flip your magnet and make it match this behavior here, where when the arrow is up and as you turn to the right, I'm getting 5, and as I go back down, I get 0. So that's the same polarity. If you're getting something different than that, you might need to flip your magnet around if you opened it up and the magnet was loose. So the other thing you can test is that on-off pin that we were talking about. So I just switched the yellow wire, instead of going to the 0 to 5 volt pin, which on this is yellow, to going to the white, which is the far left. And as we discussed before, this is more of an on-off pass-through of the voltage. So what you'll see is I have 0, 0, 0. Then when I get into that range, I get 13 volts. So however much voltage I was passing it is coming through, coming through, coming through. So it's essentially an on-off signal. So the other thing you can do before you put it back is just check to see if you are also getting that on-off signal from your throttle position sensor. Really, as soon as you get into that range where the voltage should be changing, you're going to get the full amount of voltage that you're passing in. And in our case, a little 12 volt battery, so we're getting 13. And now this is just that on-off signal line. So right now, based on the tests we've done on the Workbench, I think that this throttle position sensor is good. And I am going to put the lid back on and re-stick it in the cart. So when you go down there back to your cart, you just remember to be extremely gentle with these modules. The casings are extremely brittle plastic. And so when you start to tighten these Allen keys, all you really want to do is compress that split washer like it's finger tight and a little bit, and that's it. Don't over torque these. Don't push it. Make sure you got the middle aligned up and pushed onto the spindle correctly, and then just snug it in. That's all you need. If you over tighten it, you can crack and break the entire case. All right, so I have got the screws back in place, and you can see here the curve kind of goes up like that towards so when you're looking at it from the side, the curved part is on the front and the cable comes out of the back. And I just have the screws in place, but what you'll notice is there's a bit of play, like I can rotate this. And so what I've done before you snug it down is I've plugged it back into the battery here. And what we can see is make sure that as I push on this throttle, so you can see at full throttle, I'm only getting 2 volts. I'm gonna go back out, so 0.2 and 2 volts. So I'm almost getting half throttle right now for my pedal position. I just have the exact same setup going on that we had on the Workbench with a little 12 volt battery. So what that means is this is a little askew and I need to rotate. So I'm just gonna rotate it, I'll pull it a little bit more forward and I'll see if that does the trick. So now as I push, it's worse. So I'm going to rotate it backwards, push it back, pushing the top back towards the front of the cart. Okay, let me try this now. There we go. Okay, so 4.99, 0. 4.99, 0.1. So that's good. So what we're seeing there is a good setup. So that before you tighten those bolts down, what you want to do is just make sure your pedal is getting that full 5 volt range. And so for me to get, if it's not enough, I pushed it back, kind of rotating the block this way towards the front a little bit. So just before you tighten everything down, that's a really good thing to check. I would almost say that this is a critical step to do, because what you don't want to do is have that pin, rotate, have the magnet get loose, have something be weird, have the cart turn on and just take off on you because you're passing voltage in and the cart thinks it's receiving pedal position. So definitely, if you are doing something like this, you're going to want to check while the cart is off, while you're on 12 volt, that it is correctly passing everything through. Once we get it all bolted up and tightened up, we can do one more test in the software before we take it out of neutral. All right, so I got the box all snugged back up, and I'm happy with the range of voltage I'm seeing. So 0.1, all the way at the bottom, I'm getting 499. 0.1, 499 all the way at the bottom. So I'm happy that with the range that I'm seeing on the voltmeter, again, just using the same battery test that we were doing on the Workbench. So that's looking good. Okay, with everything back installed, now I have my diagnostic software open, and I'm gonna push on the throttle pedal, and you'll be able to see the green light on the accelerator switch. So that's signaling, yep, the accelerator switch signal line is working. The other thing we're going to look at is the accelerator voltage. So you can see there 0.3 volts is what it's getting right now at a neutral state. And as I push it all the way down, 5 volts. I'm going to let go, 0.1, push it all the way down, 5. And as I go between, you can see it slowly changes with different voltages for the amount that I am pressing on the throttle position. So the other thing you can verify is once we know what our throttle voltage range is you can go into the calibration settings and click on accelerator tab. And inside here, you can see the different settings for the maximum voltage of your accelerator and the minimum voltage of your accelerator. So you can see here that the default that I have set up right now, I haven't changed this, but it's going to say that the minimum is 0.5 volts. So anything under 0.5 volts, it's just going to consider nothing. And the maximum is set at 4.2. So if your pedal is really only reaching 4.6 or 4.7, don't worry, you're likely not losing any top end speed, because this is what the controller is determining would be full throttle, is 4.2 volts. Anything above 4.2 volts doesn't really matter, and anything below 0.5 volts doesn't really matter. So if you find your sensors way out of whack, another thing to check might be these two attributes here. Those are what mine are set at. So if we go back to the home page and take a look at our accelerator voltage, I'm seeing 0.1, and as I push all the way to the end, I'm getting 5 volts. So that is a perfect accelerator setup right now. So everything there is looking good again. All right, well, that's it for today. I hope this video is helpful to you guys. I do know that apparently amongst dealers, this is one of the most common thing, is essentially that this small plastic magnet holder just breaks. It breaks apart inside of that throttle position sensor. So if that has happened to you, or you just want some extras, we do have these available now on hillvalleylabs.com. and we can ship them out to you, no problem. Probably a good thing to have laying around. So if you guys have had error code 085 or issues with your cart not accelerating, these are the steps that I would try to follow. Do be careful. You don't want to feed a bunch of voltage to your throttle pedal accidentally. So take it in small increments, always checking to make sure that things look good. Keep the cart in neutral. Do build yourself a USB programming cable, because as you can see, it is helpful to do those debugging. Anyways, thanks again. If you guys have any questions, let me know, or any other advice that I missed would also be awesome for everybody. So cheers.